You're listening to Beyond Business, the business podcast about things that aren't on the balance sheet. You will hear from experts on work-life balance, living a fulfilled life, and making a bigger impact around the world. If you believe in purpose and profit, then settle in for a great episode of Beyond Business. Now here's your host, Executive Life Coach, Kevin Hoover.
All right, we're here with three of my favorite gentlemen. The reason I like these guys is because of their brotherhood in business and beyond. I'm going to let you quickly introduce yourselves. Nick, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'm Nick Sowers. I'm a broker in Myrtle Beach with Beach Connection Realty. Also with these guys, we have the Brokers and Booze podcast, which is why we have the booze out while we're on a podcast. So
can't very well have Brokers and Booze without the booze, can you?
It wouldn't be official, that's for sure. I'm Billy Yates with Sands Realty. Also do long and short-term property management, which keeps things interesting.
Awesome. I'm Chris Ward. I'm broker in charge of Eagle Realty, amongst other things.
Yeah, amongst other things. Now, what I really, I think what I really like about hanging out with you guys is one, your friendship. First of all, like I really get a sense of like you got each other's back, even though you're in similar industries and there could be a little competition. I guess my first question is there any competition between the B&B brothers? Is there any like, I'm doing a little better than you?
But there was a joke a couple of years ago. We were loosely tracking like which real estate firm did the most sales between the three of us during a year. The problem is Bill never put all his sales in the MLS, so we never really figured out who did the most.
There's a whole lot of competition. Chris kind of takes care of the north end. I've got a little niche with about 750 units between sand dunes and ocean dunes, which is about 95% of my business. Yeah. And Nick just finds all the foreclosures and flips before we do. So
the good thing with the three of us, we all have an abundance mentality. So it's like there's plenty of business to go around. I don't have to try to take business from Bill or Chris.
Yeah,
it's vice versa.
I find that to be really important. Like, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think there's a lot of, especially in the real estate industry, mortgage insurance, those kind of fields, it's really easy to get into scarcity mode. It's really easy to not make friends in your business. It's really easy to not, mingle. It's really easy to do that. So I think that the abundance piece, that kind of, now since you said it out loud, I'm like, that's kind of what you guys exude. Like when I listen to your podcast, I see you on social, like, it's just kind of like, there's enough for everybody. Just do your thing, do it really well, serve the people. So I'm glad you said that. That really needs to come to the forefront a little bit for people that don't know you like or watch you like I watch you. I think that's something that we need more of in the world. So tell me the story. How did Brokers and Booze come about? Whose idea was it? Did you have to convince the other two this was a good idea and wasn't going to sink the businesses? How did it come about?
I feel like we all have different origin stories.
So Chris Ward was actually sitting on a panel and we were talking about things you got to do to, kind of keep a face in this market. If not, you just turn into a dinosaur and fizzle out. And video was a big part of it. And the king of videos and content is Chris Ward, which is one of the reasons he was on the panel and, expressed what he does and, what kind of feedback and retention he gets from that. So after the event, I told Chris, I'm like, listen, I hate video. I said, I'd have to have a cocktail before we start filming. He's like, better yet, why don't we do it while we're recording? And
yeah, that's kind of how
well, three brokers and booze. So we decided to taste a little beverage, if it's spirit, beer, wine, talk about it, where we got it from, if it's rare. And then we just roll into a conversation about sales, and it doesn't even need to be about real estate. In fact, we just kind of focused it on a national level.
So, Kevin, actually another podcast we were on, a friend of ours, Phil Treadwell, I don't know if you met him, he said he uses us as an example on why people should start a podcast all the time. He said, here's three guys that enjoyed having drinks together that talked real estate because they're in the real estate business. They're like, all you have to do is start recording it. Right? Yeah. Start a podcast. You don't have to overthink it.
Great point. Great point. Was there any concern at all about booze being a negative impact on the brands that you each have or the business you each have?
I think it's hand in hand with the industry we work in.
What I love about content is not all content's for all people. So, you find audiences, you find people that relate. I mean, I think there's an industry tendency, especially in mortgage and real estate, that probably appeals to the majority of the audience for the most part. But yeah, there's always going to be somebody that may not be able to listen to a podcast or watch a video based on how somebody talks or, what they're doing or what kind of affinity or habit that they have or things that they like to do. They just may not relate to it. And that's cool. That's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that. Not everyone likes the fact that I live in a trailer and drive around the country. Yeah. And so I think that's interesting to talk about because I do think there is a little bit of fear in business around if I do what I like to do with the people I like to do it with, the next thing is considering the judgment that may or may not come with that, So I think one of the things I really like, I worked in spirits for a long time. So when you guys started, I was like, finally, somebody gets me, man. That was kind of so I'm definitely one of your people. And then, but also I think, the intellectual conversations that you have around it is very important. So let's talk about really what's important right now. What's your favorite drink of choice? That's really what we want to know. That's really what life's about, right?
Kevin, this might be one of your favorites, Angel Envy.
Yep.
It's finished in a port wine barrel, so it kind of gives you that extra little smooth kick.
Yeah, love that.
Nick is a tequila guy.
Yeah, I've kind of took on tequila as my drink of choice, and actually, Bill has my favorite tequila here at the bar, so I was able to get it. It's Tears of Leona. It is by a deep Mexican tequila family whose origins even go back to one of the presidents of Mexico. So it's really, really finely made, and it's got a great taste to it. But I actually did pour it out because you do got to let it breathe like a red wine before you drink it. So
interesting. And I noticed there's no plastic sombrero on top, so that's probably a decent tequila, right?
This ain't your mixer.
Right. Yeah.
I'm rocking. I'm usually wine's my go-to, to be honest with you. But my secondary is usually like a Jack and Coke or just some sort of bourbon. I would stick with bourbons. I actually pulled out in the array of bourbons that Mr. Yates has here at his home bar. Just a local distillery is 1233 Distillery here in Little River, North Myrtle Beach area.
Oh, nice.
Big 6 bourbon. Throw a little splash of ginger in there, and it's a good little apple.
There you go. And I think that's important to bring up too, so we're not talking about, slamming back PBRs and taking Jaeger shots with your take on booze. We are a sophisticated bunch of cocktailers. Yeah.
Kevin, the other thing I was thinking about when you were saying that, the audience we've had guests that do not really drink at all. We've had to survive Nick going through 75 hard, where he had not allowed to have alcohol and record episodes. So we've done non-alcoholic drinks and just some different, variations of the podcast that, might reach the non-alcoholic audience.
Yeah.
Or we just say skip the first 5 minutes and get to the real estate.
We're just getting to the real estate.
There you go. Why is Brokers and Booze so important to you guys? Because you obviously have stuck with it. You've developed a following. You've got people that listen, like myself. You've got why do you think why is it important in the landscape of kind of what you do and who you are? Because it's very easy to start these kind of things. I know you guys see it every day. People start and then after 2 episodes they quit because nobody downloaded or whatever. Why is it important you guys stick with it?
I think the basis starts with our friendship.
I actually look forward to meeting once or twice a month. And honestly, I probably see Chris more so just for the recordings. At least in the last year and a half through COVID was a little struggle. Yeah. But it just kind of keeps us all together, sharing some ideas. And after we're done recording, of course, we have another cocktail and,
see where it goes.
Let our hair down and kind of talk about what's been going on in our lives.
And it's the old saying, you can't become good at something until you spend 10,000 hours at it or whatever. So
absolutely.
We're like, hey, why would you give up after a couple when you probably your first couple are probably some of your worst.
Yeah.
And so you get better, and as we have definitely more of a flow in how we talk to each other and converse on the podcast.
Yeah.
because something you might relate to, and I know that I relate to in just content creation and as a whole. And, you create a lot of individual content. I think this is a lot easier and dynamic because of the social aspect with the three of us. It's not a work or like that strenuous to come and like hang out. And it is truly us hanging out, discussing the industry that we all work in. And something we would probably be doing at happy hour anyway. And we decided to make it into content, out there. And the fact that we, have the camaraderie and friendship and the three of us makes it easy to keep that continuing, to keep, pressing forward and not skip out on it.
Yeah.
It's easy to cancel a happy hour, but when you cancel a recording, then you feel like, you're letting the team down. So it holds us to it.
Accountable.
It holds you accountable to your happy hours. That's important. I love it. I love it.
You're serious.
I love it. I think we're onto something. We got to get some shirts made. I think we got something going here. So is there any stories of Nick showing up too many booze deep and not being able to contribute to the podcast?
No, but when we batch record multiple in a row, you can tell when we get to the last podcast of the day.
Toward the end of the month. Yeah.
You can tell two of the three of us.
And especially if you if Chris does our editing, so I give him a lot of credit there, but he because he probably definitely edits some sidebar conversations between Bill and I that just like we should have a whole episode that's just that.
The whispering in the background.
It's hard to Kevin. It's hard to do. If you do we've done a max. I think we did 6 episodes is the most we've ever done in one day, and that just got out of control.
Yeah.
That's a good day.
I can see why.
6 is way too many for Burkers and Boots to record in one setting. So that's an all day.
Maybe we didn't think this through.
It's not like you're having 6 cocktails. You're having 6. You're mixing it up, and it's a party in the stomach.
Especially mixing different alcohols, going from red wine to tequila to
oh my gosh,
craft beer to.
But even 3 or 4, If anybody else there is thinking about starting a booze podcast, they probably don't do batch recording as much as we probably do. So.
Or if you're not like, especially if you're just getting into booze and just getting into podcasting, you should probably not batch record. You need to build up to it.
Disclaimer for everyone listening at home: these are trained professionals, and they're How important is it? I mean, obviously, I think every time I talk to you guys, I get a sense of how much fun you have together. I think walking the line, the landscape of the world we live in, like walking the line between having a really good time and not taking yourself too seriously, but serious enough. Like how, like in your in Brokers and Booze, like there's definitely that element of let's have a cocktail, and then there's also that element of you guys are wicked smart business guys. Like you are super savvy in business, and so there is that element of balance there that I feel was that the intention of like let's break the ice, let's have some fun, and then let's flex a little bit on actual value for the listener. Is that kind of the goal?
Yeah, I mean, I think so personally. The fact that kind of how we were saying with during our introductions, that we each operate in some different niches in the real estate industry. We've been in it for years, and being able to draw on different experiences that we each have with different buyers, sellers, different niche markets, properties that we've all got to experience, and then not to mention guests that we bring on in those realms as well. I hope adds value to the audience. And, probably sometimes we say things that people are thinking and they're maybe too afraid to say within the industry itself.
Oh, yeah.
But, that's the fact that we work in an industry where we're competitors and yet need each other to make a deal or transaction happen is the beauty of real estate. And the kind of cool thing of our podcast is being able to show that, we are different companies, but we all work together and we all can get along.
Everyone's going to the same happy hour anyway after the deal's done. So
doing business that way, it's the easiest transactions I have ever done is with these two guys right here. In general, when it comes to business, because you already have that basis. Like you know each other, you're not trying to feel each other out, feel like, oh, what in the world? You can be straight and honest with each other because you're friends. So it's just, you don't have to posture like a lot of real estate agents do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I see that. Like, I think the relationship between you three is, if you listen to only one episode, you kind of get a sense of like, these guys kind of like each other a little bit. Like they kind of, this is not like a chore, you know? So tell me about the podcast. Like how far in it, do you guys think about content ahead of time? How long does it take you to come up with what you're drinking that day, and how much planning goes into each episode?
Well, the advantage when we're recording here at the Bill Yates, the Yates family pub, is they do have a great, so that is a nice starter spot. Now, actually, I think since we started the podcast, when I'm walking in a liquor store now, I look for unique stuff. Like, I'm like, hey, I wonder if that's something we can do on the podcast or not.
Yeah.
Like, I think about that. Like, I look for stuff that has a story behind it, something that has a little more meaning that's not, mass sold to the public.
And I think we've had to get a little bit. We're on episode 80 of our podcast, right?
Wow.
And I've noticed from an editing standpoint, just as we've kind of started recording episodes, you have your go-tos that most of us that all drink this relatively same thing on a certain list. And now with Yates Pub, I feel like we've gone through a lot of that on Yates Pub. So now we've got to start. I think this next season of our podcast is going to be trying to get creative. Like, what do we drink? Like, what do we find to drink? Because we've tried a lot of different cocktails, a lot of different drinks, whether it's beer, wine, liquor on the show. And then your content question. What's so cool about, I think, our business and the real estate industry as a whole is that usually there is a new story to tell. Like, there is something that we can talk about, that we can find a topic. And I don't know how in advance we go, but there's usually something going on that we try to concurrently put on the show. Because there's just,
I think it's stuff we hear. We log in our brain. That's I do that. Like, I hear something going on in the industry or in the thing. There was a whole bunch of, what was it? Like, if you have one of the big players in the industry, like Zillow or somebody, when they're acquiring somebody, I immediately log in my head, that's going to be something people are talking about. We should talk about that. They're getting into the brokerage business. Okay, that's something to talk about. So there's always something going on. And then, of course, you can always talk about market directions, market trends.
Sure. Yeah.
You probably spend one every 4 or 5 episodes talking about market trends because
they're changing.
They're changing so fast. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
Inventory
from our local market aspect, and we've had guests from around the country that have been on the show and that we've been on their shows, and I think which has allowed us to broaden, how we talk about the real estate industry as a whole, just outside of our little bubble. There's always something going on in our little bubble, but then we can also kind of talk to bigger things, metaverse and real estate, NFTs, like whatever's going on the macro market as well. Yeah.
That's interesting. It really is. I love the take on it. I think the booze makes it approachable, and then the savvy you guys have in business makes you start thinking after a couple sips, like, oh, I should pay attention to these dudes. They know what they're talking about a little bit. How do these relationships that you guys have, like when you look at not necessarily how it affects business, but you go back home to your house, and I know there's gratitude. I've talked to each of you individually and together. I know there's gratitude for support. What does it mean to have this kind of brotherhood and this kind of camaraderie in the highly competitive, cutthroat, commission-based world of business? What does it mean to you?
My first thought that pops into my mind is it's super important in the sense of you don't have to, when something falls apart or you haven't, they get it. They understand. If something in the business world, like a transaction falls apart, oh, crap, I really needed that check this month.
Right.
We get it. You don't have to explain it to the other guys. They get it. So having that in that business world is nice. We've all been there. That's the other thing. We've all been there. So
I guess I like the fact that we are kind of diverse. I'll throw Chris a client and just say, hey, listen, this is not my forte. I don't think I could optimally serve them in this area or that subdivision. Go ahead and take them. And, send me a referral. And there's never any questions about, now that we have 6,000 agents, sometimes you're feeling yourself doing both sides of the deal just to get it closed. They're in good hands. And once you refer them to them, they're taken care of like your own.
Yeah, that's important.
It's so funny, a lot of times I think of us as friends first before business.
Yeah.
I mean, just non-transactional mindset, even within a business context. But, for me, I don't have a lot of close friends down here, like in Myrtle Beach. For the most part, and these two are in a very short list of people that I would like actually consider friendships, not just business acquaintances or within the business network. So, it's cool that we get to hang out and do business together, but that's like the side of it. That's not the primary.
Right. Did the business relationship come first, or did you guys meet outside of business?
Ooh. I met Nick when I transitioned to an office, and shortly thereafter, he invited me to one of Chris' client appreciation events, and I feel like we crashed it.
I hear those are pretty epic. Events.
They are. That wasn't it. So we met more of I think I met Bill in more of a business context. I met Nick in a church setting, actually. So that was more like a social setting. Before, I didn't even know he was in real estate actually at that point. I don't think.
One of the funny stories behind meeting Bill is when Bill first moved into this office where I was working at the time, the company I was working with at the time, the broker at the time came in and said, "Hey, we got this new guys coming in. They'll be moving their stuff in." And the first day, Bill, the only thing he brings in the office the very first day is a mini fridge and a box of liquor. No computer, no stuff for a desk. No, I'm here to work.
You gotta make sure you got scotch on hand for those tough phone calls.
So, I was like, this guy might do business different than any person I've ever seen.
So hold on, that reminds me of the origin story. So my origin story with both of them, because I knew Nick before I knew Bill, but January of 2016, we took what I'm going to call now the first Brokers and Booze trip to Snowshoe, West Virginia.
Yes.
Was the first time I hung out with Bill more than like an hour, like a happy hour.
That's
so
true.
That was the three of us in Snowshoe skiing.
That was the bonding moment, huh?
But that's 6 years ago. So like when you're talking about like how our camaraderie, how the podcast that we've only had for a couple of years, but I mean honestly, that's a solid amount of time that we've got to build rapport, relationship, work together. Even before we started content.
Yeah. And I think that's important for the young, the people rising up. When I say young, I don't necessarily mean age young. I mean someone new to creating their own podcast or their own content, even someone new in the real estate industry. It all like. The idea, I know you guys have heard this, that it takes 10 years to make an overnight success kind of idea, that there was personal relationships on a deep level being developed before Brokers and Booze became the go-to podcast. Like you guys didn't just say, hey, we need a ball guy, and we need a guy with a good bar, and we need a guy who already films a bunch of stuff, has all the gear. Like you're not creating a boy band here. You don't need all the key players. So I think that's important for the people who are getting into that kind of thing to realize. If you're going to go into a collaborative environment, the relationships are started on a personal level first, and I think that's. Hearing that now, even though I kind of suspected it, that's what really translates into the attractive qualities of Brokers and Booze. That it is that it's not like you're watching the train wreck. It's like you're watching the camaraderie. You're watching the gratitude. You're watching the knowledge. That's the kind of thing. So it's a little different. I think that's brilliant. I really do. If I'm I'm new to content creation. I'm new to my industry, whatever that might be. I'm new to podcasting. And you have one piece of advice to give me. I'd like to hear from each of you. What would your piece of advice be to someone who may be dipping a toe into the world you've carved out?
I would start with find a good real estate coach or mentor where you can kind of learn from instead of making the same mistakes. And I think it'd just accelerate your success. And then I kind of delayed with getting an assistant, but I promise you. I never thought I could afford it, but the day I got an assistant, I tripled my production, and it was totally worth it. So get some good people around you.
Chris, I'll let you go. This is easy for you.
Oh, for me, well, especially if you're pointing more towards like content for anybody building a brand, building a business. I always preach consistency, and I preach that almost with a little slight of hypocrisy because lately I don't think I've been as consistent as I used to be. And I keep reminding myself that I need to make sure that I'm getting back on track. But anybody that's creating a podcast, creating videos, creating any kind of content to build their brand, Consistency. Keep going. It takes time. It takes patience, and really, if you're trying to make an impact, if you're trying to get a message out there that you think people will find valuable, don't worry about the audience size. Just keep putting that message out there. That's you're going to provide value to somebody.
Good advice.
Be a million people.
I'll actually jump on top of right off what you said. Something we've all heard a ton. Quantity over quality. Don't be afraid to just put a ton out there, because you never know who's reaching what's hitting each person. Yeah. And along that line, don't expect perfection. Too many people wait to put stuff out. Just go. Just put it out regardless.
Yeah, that's great advice. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about getting into what these guys are doing, or I think you could really apply it to anything in life. Really, those three pieces of advice could really apply to your relationships. They could apply to a lot of different areas. How is the evolution of Brokers and Booze? Over 80 episodes? How is the evolution? Have you been surprised at anything as far as viewership or downloads or anything like that? Has anything been like, oh, we didn't see that coming? That's a nice perk.
Personally, I think there's so much more potential than what we've tapped into for what we're doing. And
I agree.
I think it's just so I don't want to say chill to us, but it really has been so social that I don't think we've actually like capitalized on trying to build out the brand, build out like opportunities with right. What we're trying to accomplish. Though I think it's in our heads, but we talk about it and then drink about it.
Yeah, I feel like that's actually what I was talking about. Personally, I feel like that needs to be a goal of ours for the second half of 2022, is to actually treat it a little more like a business and a little less. I mean, beyond business, we've definitely got the social side down, as you've right. gotten the personal relationship side down. So now it's like, okay, what are the serious opportunities we could take off of this and pursue with it? So
that's interesting. When you tap into something and you start it and it's a lot of fun and you're with the people you're closest with and, all that. And then there is a point where it's like, are we giving it our full potential or are we not? So 3 categories: wine, spirits, and beer. You have the rest of your days alive to drink one in each category. What do you choose? Whoever wants to start, just jump in. Your spirits, your beer, your wine.
Spirits all day.
No, you want specifics?
Yeah. Like what?
I'll do a bourbon with 1 cube and a brand. Anything Buffalo Trace. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be expensive. I think anything Buffalo Trace tastes good. And I always got to have a little shot of tequila for a sipper on the side. So,
oh my gosh, you're hardcore.
Mine actually probably would be this Tears. Obviously, there's a cost benefit to that. If I got to go with a tequila brand that's cheaper, I'd go to Herradura.
Love that.
I would definitely go red wine. Like for the rest of it, if I had to pick between the 3 categories, I would go red wines and try and go between that. I mean, spirits are good. Obviously, I'm a bourbon guy, but if you're talking like
what type of red wine,
that's what I'm saying. Like he said wine, so that was total encompassing of like just wine for this one. So that's what I love about wine, is that there's so many nuances and that kind of thing between different brands of Cab or different brands of Pinot Noir, that Merlots or Malbecs or that kind of thing. I could really pair that forever. That'd be awesome.
You could really do some damage. That'd be excellent. What's the most lavish drink you've ever had? Like what you were like, screw it, let's get it.
In volume, we bought probably $2,000 worth of wine at Hall's Chop House in Charleston one time. But that was multiple bottles, not just one.
Multiple bottles. Yeah. good bottles, I imagine.
Yeah.
Tequila, probably Don Julio Real. It's about $400 a bottle.
Yeah.
Nick's Tears is about $220.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've been to Charleston Distillery, bought one of their $250. They only had 1 barrel, 220 bottles or whatever. So I think that was close to $250.
Nice.
Pappy, I've never bought a bottle. I've sipped on it, and that was before the craze. So maybe about 5 years ago, I was at a wine tasting down in Pawleys Island, and I saw a bottle of Pappy and then Louis the 13th. So I went for the Pappy, and he just kept filling up my wine glass.
Yeah, I think Pappy Van Winkle's like a boat. You don't want to own a bottle. You want to have a friend that has a bottle.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. Yeah. We're gonna steal that.
Absolutely, take it.
When we do go out and go to places like Halls or go out for like nice dinners and spend $250 to $400 bottles of wine, but then you really, when you start looking them up and you can go get them on retail markets for a lot less, than you feel a little worse. I'm like, I can get this for $99.
Better to pay that corporate fee.
Yeah. That's my wine text.
So it's funny. I feel like with tequila, because that's kind of where I've been on the higher end. Besides some wine, is I feel like the one I want, I don't even know what it is yet. Like I feel like I'm gonna travel to Guadalajara, Mexico, and like go back, and they're gonna be like, oh, here we got this special. We got 5 bottles of this back here, and you can't even find it anywhere. And that regardless of price, it's going to be like the cool story, the unique experience.
Yeah, you will. I think, as we travel, one of the things we found when we were in California, like Chris, you'll appreciate this, is a lot of the wine that never leaves California. Mm-hmm. And we're not even talking like upper tier stuff. We're talking like just, stuff. We stayed at a vineyard in Paso Robles, and they don't ship it anywhere. It stays right there, and you got to go there to get it. And so I think you definitely find that. I think that's a big thing in Europe with wine especially. But, I think that's the beauty of traveling through the drink. It really is learning their cultures, learning the territory and things like that. So it's really fun. Listen, if you're out there, go to Brokers and Booze. These guys are wicked smart in their business. They're also wicked smart in the selections of drink they have. Follow them on Facebook. You guys on Instagram?
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, anywhere you consume podcasts, Spotify, Apple, all those places. Brokers and Booze. Gentlemen, it has been a delight to see you again. First of all, good to see hometown faces, but also I always get something out of our talk, so I appreciate you very much.
Yep, Mr. Hoover, we appreciate it.
Cheers. You guys sit tight for a
Thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond Business. Please subscribe to stay up on new episodes. Follow Kevin on Facebook and LinkedIn at Kevin Hoover Coaching or on the website at www.kevinhoovercoaching.com. Until next time, make today matter.